Hi, everyone. And today we're going to talk about, you know, about, the binds that if you made by, about Irwin Toy and Bandai. Well, the binds of being made by Bandai is that you can't hold anything in your hands, which is a bind to this day. And yes, I'm quite aware that Bandai's been making Sailor Moon dolls since between 93, but the whole bind about how you can't get it to hold anything in its hands unless you take the gloves off is the only way it works. You know? And also the stands that don't work well. And I'm not talking about the Irwin toy stands because they got their own bind. I'm talking about the stands that that Bandai would make for all their dolls. They would either look awkward. When I mean look awkward, I mean if you put a doll on it, the doll would look like it was like bending, not like it was full straight, like it was always bending over or something. And that's a bind if you've been made by Bandai, which half of Sailor Moon dolls were. That's not the bind. If you're made by Irwin Toy, your bind was that the stand would not hold you, would not fit, or not fit well if you wore shoes or high heel shoes, which in Sailor Moon's world seem to be the only kind of, or boots. Because if you wear boots, then most likely the Irwin Toy doll, the Irwin Toy stands would hold you if you wore boots. But not all boots were the same. If you wear shoes or high heel shoes, and well, forget about it, the stands weren't going to work. And Bandai, sadly, their stands that were made didn't really fit very well either. And I know a lot of folks out there, don't get me wrong, a lot of folks out there like Bandai. And I think Bandai is very well good at what they do when it comes to making Sailor Moon dolls. But they didn't know how to make they did not know how to make the dolls hold anything unless you took the gloves off. And yes, that also was a bind with Irwin, because Irwin in the beginning was making dolls that were making the dolls that looked like the Bandai ones, because they were working with the same things that Bandai worked, and at least until late 20 to 2001 while towards the end of Irwin Toys' time as a business. You're right, Sailor Moon. I mean, this stand I'm in is not the one that came with this doll. The one that came with it looked like a round board, and you had to put the feet in. But then it wouldn't always hold you right, and I always looked like I was kind of shifted to the side a little. You know. And these gloves I wear, they give me my own staff, or more like it's a sigh, you know. But sadly, they don't, it couldn't hold it. I mean, I got to do it once, but that was like sometime early last year. But beyond that, I just gotta like to hold it or have it leaning on my shoulder, because the only way I'm gonna hold it is by taking these gloves off, you know. And a lot of folks would look at this doll and think it has to be taken off of, one of the many drawing shows, which is only two, the many plays or song plays. But the truth is, this doll was a standalone. It wasn't offshooted from any of the drawing shows, which there's only two. It wasn't offshooted from any of the plays, which there are many, or any of the song plays, which there are many in themselves as well. So, yeah, and I believe at the end of the day, it's still a bind for Irwin still making Sailor Moon dolls to this day, and the same two binds come up. The lack of holding anything in their hands unless you take the gloves off. The stand's not working very well either. you know. So at the end of the day, sadly, it is what it is, you know. But I'm not irked over it. I'm not bitching about it. I'm just, telling a truth out there about, well, a truth that any Sailor Moon dog gatherer knows that. They know how Bandai stands didn't work well. They knew how the Irwin toy stands didn't work very well. Unless you had long boots, unless you had short skinny boots or whatever. And if you wore shoes or high heel shoes, which most of folks in Sailor Moon's world wear, then good luck, because that Irwin toy stand isn't going to work very well. And the Bandai stands aren't going to work that well either. You know? Well, yeah, you're right about that, Sailor Saturn. Sailor Ringworld. You're right about that, Ataru. Alright, everyone. That's all the time we got. Give me your thoughts on the bind of being made by Irwin Toy or Bandai, because there are many, and I just listed out at least some of the known binds. If there's others, let me know, but those seem to be the most ones that folks know about. So you give this film a like, thumb it up, which is giving it a like, sharing it if you know how to get that to work, and playlisting it, and I'll see you later.